Well, hello there, my beloveds. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to December. Thank you for being here once again with me, sharing this experience, sharing this space, holding this space. I come to you for this teaching in a very particular space. And that space is one of pain. This space is one of anguish, sadness. It's not exclusively sadness. There is exhilaration, there is joy, there is possibility and hope, and there is deep, deep love. Right now, it mostly hurts. Right now, it's mostly pain. Right now, it's mostly that space where you are acutely attuned and deeply aware to the breath of your skin, to the subtle pricks of everything around you, because your nervous system is at high attention. For those of you that may or may not have had experiences with channeling or downloads or connecting to different levels of consciousness, this painful experience or the experience of pain, that highly attuned pinprick experience, is actually quite similar to the experience of channeling. And why does that matter? Well, it's because it signals that our body is available. It signals that our consciousness is streamlined and in a place of cohesion to be a direct channel, a direct link to source energy, of source energy. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat to this, a little bit of an asterisk, because we are always connected to source energy. We are source energy. However, we are much more comfortable and familiar with the density of human consciousness, so we don't always engage with our source frequency, either in that way or ever. However, being a practitioner, being a clairvoyant, being a clear channel, I am very familiar with the frequency and the vibration and the way that it feels to channel. And the experience of being in pain is very similar to that. It's very, very similar to that. And again, I say it's because of our availability. We are in right relationship. If we are doing it well, if we are doing it lovingly, if we have done the work every day leading up to said painful experience, if we have done the work every day to cultivate a foundation and a baseline of purity and love and trust and self-worth, then when we are in pain, we are also in love. We are also in our channel. We are also highly attentive and very aware of all vibrations and expressions and frequencies around us. And so in that way, it is the perfect space from which to teach about the transition from water to earth, from west to north, from sisterhood to spirituality. December is a transition month. December is when we celebrate the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. It is again another tipping point where we shift from the most dark to allowing more light in. And that brings us back to pain a little bit. Because leaning into the darkness and floating out into the void of the unknown can feel very uncomfortable to our ego. It can feel very precarious to our consciousness. It is vitally important and so completely necessary, though. We need to know that we are capable of moving beyond our physical limitations. And it's the north direction that teaches us. It's the concept of spirituality that lets us know that we are more than our physical form. We are more than what our physical senses show us. We are more than our physical manifestation. We are more. Getting into the north direction is the end of the cycle. It's winter time. It's the space and time where things die. In the west direction, we talked a lot about releasing, letting go, letting the waters wash over us, cleanse us, baptize us, set us free. In the west direction, we talked a lot about discernment between what's going to stay and what's going to go. And in the north direction, we honor the element of earth. And in that way, are we earthing and or grounding into that which wishes to stay. So a lot left during the west direction. We are still technically in the west direction until the winter solstice, which is in North America, depending upon where you are, or in the northern hemisphere, depending upon where you are, anywhere from December 19th to 22nd, 20th to 22nd. Again, it's a little bit of a range based on the position of the sun and the moon and where you are, in the hemisphere, the northern hemisphere. So we still have elements of west direction, water medicine that is still rushing. Things are still washing away. Things are still being released. What is happening though now at this point is we're starting to come to grips. We're starting to get a grasp on what it is that wants to stay. And maybe that shows up as what wants to stay. Maybe it shows up as what we refuse to let go of, what we are going to continue to fight for. Maybe that shows up as what is willing to do the work necessary to still remain. These can be people, places, things, whatever scenarios, situations, relationships, thought systems, internal narratives, whatever it is. This is where we start to come to the bottom of our sifting process that has gone on in the West. And we see the gold, we see the nuggets, we see the components of what is left behind that holds enough weight to stick around. I say that word very specifically, holds enough weight, because earth is dense. Earth is solid. Earth is heavy. And the things that are deeply anchored into our psyche, the parts of our soul that are for us, that are what we are made up of, those things are going to stick around. Those things are going to stick around as they should. The question becomes oftentimes in the north direction, how do you feel about those things that are sticking around? How do you feel about your essential self? How do you feel about the things that you have witnessed within your personality, within your truth? How do you feel about them? Are you okay with what you are? Because that's what really the north direction is teaching us, inviting us, asking us to ponder. Are you okay with what you are? Because I made you very specifically a certain way. And 10 times out of 10, our greatest gift is also our biggest stumbling block. We tend to have pretty gnarly relationships with the thing that we were put here on this planet to do. My teacher taught me that that is our medicine. The medicine that I carry as the woman that I am is something that I have, over the course of my life, up until more recently, I would say the first few times that I went through this medicine wheel walk many years ago, the medicine that I carry up until that point had always been something that I felt really bad about myself for. Because when I was little, when I was small, to no fault of anyone's, everyone's doing the best they can at all times. When I was small, my inherent medicine, my natural gift, was not cultivated, supported, or even really understood. And I would say more often than not, that is the case. That is the case with us. You know, our innate way of existing as children is always fucking spot on. We know who we are, we know what we're about, we know what we're interested in, we're very connected to our emotions, like we are who we are. And then through the course of continued growth in this world, through our parents, through social conditioning, through a myriad of external circumstances, we start to be shown that who we are organically and naturally is somehow problematic. So we generate this really negative and really unhealthy relationship with our natural sense of artistry. That's the theme of the North Direction. Following the artist. The artist is you. You are the artist. You are the artwork. You are also the observer of the artist creating the artwork. Which is a little bit of a brain break. Don't get me wrong, I understand that. It's a little bit of a, wait, what did she just say? How do I do that? What are you talking about? What? However, what I will tell you is that in the North Direction, do we have the opportunity for reconciliation? Reconciliation of self, reconciliation of our artistry, reconciliation of our relationship to our spiritual self. And when I say spiritual, I do not want you to think religious. If you're taking this course with me, I imagine you already have an expanded definition of what that means. Our spiritual self is our non-physical self. Our spiritual self is our astral self. Our spiritual self is our source-based self. So the North Direction, in the winter time, where oftentimes things are still, we tend to go inward a little bit because it's a little bit cooler. We hibernate. The days are shorter. There's a lot more darkness. We tend to kind of go in the North Direction. And that is demonstrated not only externally with our planet in the Northern Hemisphere, but it is also a representation of our inner darkness. Now, let me remind you in this moment that darkness is simply an absence of light. Darkness is not a bad thing. Darkness is actually potentiality. One of my teachers used to refer to it as the illuminated darkness. Because once we take our light, aka our vision, and go look in the darkness, go peer inside there, go into those shadowy places, go into that negative narrative that we have about who we inherently are and what we were made to do. Once we take our sight and put it on that perceived negative storyline, things change. It's maybe not as scary as we thought it was going to be. We realize what is possible with this inherent gift, this inherent medicine, this inherent artistry that we carry. That's why it's the illuminated darkness. Darkness is just an absence of light. We bring our sight to it and possibilities emerge. That's why the winter solstice is so beautiful, so profound and powerful. Because at the winter solstice, at that tipping point, we celebrate and we thank the darkness. We thank the darkness for holding the space, for holding what it held for us for so long. And then once the days start to become more full of light, they start to get longer. Literally, it is the longest day of the year, and then the next, cycle, the next 24-hour cycle, daytime is just a tad longer. So there is light now that is being brought to the darkness. There is awareness and attention that is being brought to that. And we can see the possibilities. We can see that After the waters have washed away everything superfluous and not anchored and not necessary, after the waters have washed away people, places, things, relationships, experiences that were no longer serving both parties. This isn't just a me thing, it's not just a you thing, it's an all of us thing. Once the waters have washed that all away, we are left with the earth. When the water's done rushing, we are left with the earth. We are left with what wants to stay and what is anchored in. And then we get to sit during the quietness and stillness of the winter time and observe that. We get to reconcile our relationship with our earth. And from a human perspective, our body is the earth. Our body is the earth. So that translates to we get to reconcile our relationship with our sense of self, with the physical presentation, the physical manifestation that is us, that started and still has a mimicked reflection of non-tangible spiritual body. We get to reconcile our relationship with our physical self. We get to ask ourselves, am I being true to my spirit? Am I being true to the essence that organically and naturally just flows through me to the point where I cannot stop it? Almost frustratingly so, can I not stop this energy that flows through me in whatever capacity? And that's the individual medicine and artistry that I'm talking about. I was always taught that the north direction is the place of our elders and our ancestors. Because our elders, our ancestors, oftentimes they have transitioned on. They are no longer in physical form, but their frequency, their energetics, their spiritual body, their astral body still exists and still is available for us to communicate with. And that brings us back to that north direction spirituality component as well, because we do have the ability to communicate with source, with our ancestors, with, the lineage that has transitioned before us and will transition, after us, there's this long line, this extension, this energetic channel that just continues to flow. And the north direction gives us an opportunity to connect with that, to communicate and to commune with that frequency and that experience. The north direction requires us to listen a lot, because there's a lot of noise in the physical, in the physical world and the human condition. So to listen for our ancestors, to listen for that spiritual whisper, we have to be quiet. We have to cultivate an inner stillness. We have to take our earth, we have to take this earthly body and work with it so that it may become still and quiet and available for the whispers that want to come from your ancestry, from source energy, from the person down the street who's in need of something that pops into your mind. We have to pay attention to those things. Those aren't accidents. When you hear someone reaching for you, when you feel someone reaching for you, my invitation is that you respond and you answer that call. That is a north direction, spirituality component, earth element response. Because you're paying attention, you're listening. And only when we truly cultivate that inner stillness and listen are we able to make good on the promise that we made when we came into this earthly form, to flex our gifts, to embody, to make into form this inherent artistry that source imbued within ourselves. That's the job of the north direction. It's to remind us of who and what we are. And who and what we are spiritual beings. We are spiritual frequencies and components. Yes, we have physical bodies. Yep, we have mental bodies. We have emotional bodies. We've hit on all of those. Well, depending on where you're coming in, at the medicine wheel, we've hit on all of those during the course of the year. We will continue to hit on them during the course of our cycle around. But the North direction is about our relationship with our spiritual self, our essential self. It requires us to listen, and it requires us to cultivate inner stillness, and it requires us to spend some time reconciling our relationships. The West direction is a lot of relationship. It is sisterhood, it is brotherhood, it is community. And again, because December is a transition month, we still have some of that moving in. We still bring a lot of that into the beginning of December. It's not towards more the end of December that we shift into that earth element. And again, let me remind you, it's not a hard and fast stop. We don't just automatically, oh, no more water, now only earth. They bleed into one another. So there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of doing two things at once in December. And that is always a skill set that we can benefit from. We always, always, always need more practice doing two things, seemingly oppositional things at the same time. In fact, what I'm going to say to you is actually, we have the capacity to do more than just two things at the same time. We have the capacity to do a multitude of things, to experience a multitude of feelings, again, seemingly conflicting feelings at the same time. We do have the capacity to stretch and to hold all of those things, but we got to work up to it, because it's not something that we're taught. It's not something that our brains have been told is possible. We've actually been told quite the opposite. I'm here to tell you that is not true. We have to flex and build and strengthen our spiritual musculature. And we do that a lot in the North direction. We do that a tremendous amount in the North direction. If you have ever heard of the book, The Four Agreements, there is an initial passage in the beginning that talks about the smoky mirror. And the smoky mirror is basically the smoke, the fog, the illusion that gets in the way of you seeing your true self. And you come up against that smoky mirror in the North direction. You come up against the things that are getting in the way of you knowing who and what you are, of you healing your relationship with who and what you are. If you've never read the book, The Four Agreements, I highly recommend it. That is not our activity for the month, but I highly recommend that you read it. Impeccable work, absolutely impeccable work. Very simple, but beautiful basics to always, always come back to. And it's worth reading repeatedly, because it's one of those books where there's always something that just stands out differently and hits you differently. So as we enter into this North direction, and as we enter into the winter solstice, again, this relationship between dark and light, I want you to remember that one is not good and one is not bad. One is not better than the other. The relationship of dark and light focuses primarily on the word relationship. Knowing that these two seemingly opposite things need each other in order to exist and in order to do their job and play their role in the whole. And we just left the West direction, or we are leaving the West direction, where relationship is so prevalent. And in the West direction, this learning of what roles everybody plays, the masculine and feminine dance. As we shift into the North, that is a predominantly feminine expression, feminine energy, not female, not gender related, but feminine energy expression. Earth is more feminine in nature. Darkness is more feminine in nature. So the invitation here is for you to start investigating, how do I sit still? Do I do okay sitting still? What happens when I sit still? What are the thoughts that come forward that maybe I try to keep myself really busy in order to avoid thinking or feeling? The North direction opens up space and time for you to practice stretching into those perceived scary, dark places. The North direction is a threshold. The North direction is where many things die. When you think about death from a human perspective, when we die, when our bodies die, we either get put back into the earth or we are burned and like put somewhere, again, scattered somewhere out in, in the earth, on the earth. So there is this transformation component that is actually the primary teaching of the North Direction. When I say that the North Direction is where things often die, what I mean specifically is where they transform. The North Direction is where they go into this holding space to then be reborn in the east, to be reborn at the spring equinox in March. So when I say death, I really only mean transformation. I really only mean winter time. I really only mean going in and being still, going in and cultivating, gestating on a thing that is going to show itself as wanting to be reborn in the springtime. So as we leave the West and we're left with these pieces of earth that do want to stick around and do want to be nurtured and tended to and cultivated, we tend to those pieces of earth so that in the spring winds, the spring light, the warmth, something new is born of them. It is our job right now to hold space and cultivate. It is our job right now for the next 3 months to go into ourselves and cultivate our sense of self, cultivate our relationship with our spirituality, cultivate our communication, cultivate our inner wisdom, our inner artistry. It is our job right now to sit still and cultivate. It is our job right now to look in the mirror and be willing to lean into the things that maybe we don't like see. That's okay. It's okay. Whatever you see when you look in the mirror is okay. Because we can't make any changes. We can't attend to something differently so that it can be rebirthed in the spring. We can't do any of that until we look at it. And again, that's why the North Direction is the illuminated darkness. Because once we bring the light, our sight, our vision, our open-hearted, warm, loving expression, once we bring that to this perceived darkness, then we get to see what's really available there for us, what's really possible in that space for us. So we're shifting. We're still kind of watery, starting to get kind of earthy. Feeling this desire to go in, maybe get a little bit quieter, move a little bit more slowly, stay warm, cozy up, be with the people that we love. And if the people that are around us are not people that we love, we need to look at that. We are with ourselves all the time. And if that's not a person that you love, if your sense of self is not something that you love, we need to look at that. We need to tend to that, because everything comes from the inner work. Everything that's going on out there in the world, your personal external world as well as the global external world, everything comes from our inner experience. So this is where the work really has to start. That's why the North Direction is so powerful, because it forces us in. We have to look at these things. Lots of times we don't. We choose not to. We choose to feed ourselves with some type of other empty calorie, quick fix, Band-Aid situation. That's cool. Go ahead. It'll work for like a minute. And then those things that are wanting your attention in that illuminated darkness are going to come right back and rise to the surface again. So you can't ever fuck anything up, but you can slow it down. And you can cause yourself a lot of pain in the process of avoidance. I have a really particular, really lovely activity for the North Direction that is all about listening, about going slow, about being attentive to the things in your surroundings. Because if we can learn to be attentive to the things in our surroundings out here, then we can start to be more adept at being attentive to in here. Unless you just have a natural and comfortable dialogue with your inner self, it can be easier to practice it like out there and then slowly bring that skill set inward. So this is what the activity of December is meant for, is to cultivate that. It's to help you slow down, help you listen, help you honor the intuitive whispers and honor the spiritual communication that is always around you. Everywhere you go, signs, symbols, whispers, songs, conversations, headlines, like imagery. Everywhere you go, the universe is communicating with you at all times. The call for healing, the call for expansion, the call for love and peace is going out all the time. But very few listen, very few respond to that call. Now more than ever, do we need you, specifically you, to respond to that call. So you have the next 3 months available to you to really dig into that and figure that out for yourself. And the activity for the month is meant to support that and give you a little bit of guidance on how to do that. Of course, you know that I am always here for you. Whatever I could possibly do, please don't hesitate to reach out, send an email, hit me up on Instagram, send me a DM, whatever it is that you need, I'm here. I love you. I have space and time for you. We got this. We got this. And we need to get this, because there's a lot at stake right now. So I love you with all my heart. Thank you for being here. Happy winter solstice. Happy North Direction. Happy Earth energy.